when we look at the architecture of Angular application, the basic architecture of Angular application. So usually it contains modules. When you look at the architecture, it comprises of modules. That means we have modules. We have modules, right? We have modules. So many modules are present. That means service related modules. I already told you, modules can be cleanly separated. Contract modules separate, template related modules separate. Modules are cleanly separated. So many types of modules are present. Component modules, service modules, value modules, function modules, so many modules are present. So these modules are taken by injector. These modules are taken by injector. And what injector will do is, that means injector is responsible for identifying the modules that are required for your application. And it will inject those modules into services. That means we have services. So injector will maintain a set of services. It identifies the dependencies required for those services and loads them and makes them available. Technically, what is actually a service? Actually, service is nothing but we have some set of functions. So function 1, function 2, so many functions are there. These functions we need in an application. Actually, in Angular library, the functions are kept in a factory. So the word factory means it's a collection of functions. Factory is a collection of functions. So like that, so many factories are present. Factory 1, factory 2, factory 3. Every factory have a collection of related type of functions. Suppose string handling functions, one factory. Mathematical operation functions, one factory. Array functions, one factory, like that. Now, these functions we need in application. Then in some interviews, they may ask you a question. So then why I cannot use a factory in my application directly? Because in Angular, what happens? The factories are injected into services, and services are used in application, not factories directly. That means we don't use factory directly. We use services. So that means a service is a collection of factories. Some set of factories can be in one service. Now in interviews, so for experienced people, one question is asked. So because generally people who learnt Angular, they very rarely hear about the word factory. People who came from the background of JavaScript, jQuery, and Angular JS, then Angular, they know about this factory. Why? Because Angular never mentions about a factory in its infrastructure, but it uses factories in the background. That is the reason many people may not be aware of the term factory in general approach. That is the reason why it is asked in interviews for experienced people, because they have a question: why to use a service if service is getting all the functions from the factory? Why can't we use a factory? The answer is very simple. Actually, Factory uses a single call mechanism. Single call mechanism. Factory uses a single call mechanism. What is single call mechanism? Single call mechanism is nothing but single call mechanism means, so in an application, so client wants a function. If I want a function, then what happens is I have to create an object. Through the object, I have to access the function. Now for every object, the function executes only once. For every object, the function executes only once. If I want the function again, I need another again an object. Every time when you need a function, you need an object to be initialized. Every time object need to be initialized. This is single call mechanism. This is difficult to handle the functions which are to be reused regularly. And why we prefer service? Because service uses a singleton mechanism. Singleton mechanism. So usually singleton is nothing but what happens in a singleton mechanism is a client, if it requires an object, client requires a function, an object is created, and through this object can access the function. Singleton mechanism is nothing but object is created only once, and the same object is used any number of times. Any number of times. You don't need several objects for several times. So object is created only once, and the same object will be used across any number of requests. So here the point is, for every request an object is created, initialized, then it is single call. For a first request, the object is created, and for all other requests, the same object is maintained. Then we call this as a singleton. Singleton. So factory follows a single call mechanism, and service follow a singleton mechanism. Service follow a singleton mechanism. So that is how actually the concept works. So that is the reason we don't use a factory directly. We depend on services. So modules will provide all the library which are injected into services. Actually, services will get the functionality in the background from a factory only. So factory services. Now, important, these services we have to use in our application. That means we have an Angular application. In the application, I want to use these functionalities. If I want to use these functionalities, services are not directly used in application. Actually, our application is a single page application. That means we will start with some page called index.html. And important is user will stay on this index.html from begin to end. Means from application start to application end, user will load only one page, that is index. Everything comes onto that page. Now, very important is in a page, I want in the index page, I want a login screen, I want a registration form, I want some other activities to perform. That means in a single page, we need to handle several interactions. Then how every interaction is designed? Every interaction is designed by using a component. Components in Angular are the building blocks for application. Angular application is built by using components. So user will access only one page and stays on that page.